Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Rishika Barwa. Top focus story. No breakthrough in the 3-hour-long India-China talks that were held in New Delhi. Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar has described ties as work in progress and added that they are actually progressing in a slower pace than is desirable. He added, saying that the relationship between India and China is not normal because of the border friction. China, on the other hand, did not even refer to the border standoff.
If the hope was that the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang was here to announce military de-escalation in Ladakh, that clearly did not happen. With Foreign Minister Jaishankar making it clear once again that no military de-escalation meant no return to normalcy.
If you ask me, is our relationship normal today? My answer to you is no, it is not. And it cannot be normal if the situation in the border areas is abnormal. And surely the presence of a large number of troops there in contravention of agreements is abnormality.
Describing his talks as honest, the foreign minister said unilateral Chinese efforts to change the status quo in disputed areas was unacceptable and that friction remained because of Chinese military deployments.
The impact of the tension in the border areas on the overall relationship has been visible in the last 2 years. This is only natural since peace and tranquility in the border areas have been the foundation of stable and cooperative ties. Indeed, we have agreements that were designed explicitly to strengthen this foundation and prevent the kind of situation that we are seeing today. I was very honest in my discussions with Chinese Foreign Minister, especially in conveying our national sentiments on this issue. The frictions and tensions that arise from China's deployment since April 2020 cannot be reconciled with a normal relationship between two neighbors.
China's own statement has no mention of disengagement in Ladakh and says the two sides should adhere to the strategic judgment of the leaders of the two countries that China and India pose no threat to each other and are opportunities for development. Put the differences on the border issue at an appropriate position in bilateral relations and stick to the correct development direction of bilateral relations. Earlier in the day, government sources indicated that the National Security Advisor had been invited by Beijing to continue with the process of talks. Ajit Doval, who also met Wang today, said that could happen only if immediate issues are resolved successfully. The Chinese foreign minister had flown into Delhi from Kabul last night on a hush-hush visit. India today said that secrecy over the visit was at the request of Beijing. If there was anything that resembled a breakthrough in the talks, it was that India and China continue to believe in the need for discourse. But in terms of specifics, there was no announcement of a schedule or timeline of military disengagement in Ladakh. Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
And Yogi Adityanath was sworn in today as Uttar Pradesh's Chief Minister for the second time, the first Chief Minister to get a second term in 37 years. Besides Yogi Adityanath, there were 52 ministers who were sworn in. 5 among them were women and 1 was a Muslim face. Brajesh Pathak, KP Maurya was sworn in as Deputy Chief Ministers. KP Maurya being sworn in despite losing his own seat, and Brajesh Pathak, who was a law minister in the previous Yogi cabinet, has been promoted, now being looked at as the party's Brahmin face.
मैं आदित्यनाथ योगी ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि
Yogi Adityanath 2.0 kicking off in style in front of this massive gathering at Lucknow's Atal Bihari Vajpayee Ikana Stadium, with Prime Minister Modi as chief guest and all BJP chief ministers in attendance. The swearing in a full 15 days after the BJP retained power in Uttar Pradesh by winning 255 out of 403 constituencies, securing a 41.29% vote share. OBC leader Keshav Prasad Maurya, who lost the UP election, is back as Deputy Chief Minister. But Dinesh Sharma has been replaced by a new Brahmin face, Brajesh Pathak, a former Mayawati aide who switched over to the BJP before the 2017 UP Assembly election.
बहुत धन्यवाद आभार सबका अपनी जनता के लिए बहुत बहुत सभी का प्रदेश भर के लोगों का आभार।
Also made a minister, ex-bureaucrat A.K. Sharma, known to be close to Prime Minister Modi. Mr. Sharma, a Bhumiyar from East UP, was sent to the state 2 years ago, but shared a frosty relationship with Yogi Adityanath. His inclusion in the cabinet means the Prime Minister and Home Minister Amit Shah prevailed over the Chief Minister. These are the caste calculations in the new cabinet. There are 8 Brahmin ministers in the new government, 6 Rajput ministers, 2 ministers from the Bhumiyar community, 5 Jat ministers out of 8 MLAs from the community, meaning the Jats are being wooed even now, and 8 SC/ST ministers. Right after the swearing in, Mr. Adityanath met with his newly sworn in ministers. But 22 ministers from the last government were dropped, including its most prominent ones and spokespersons of the government, Shrikant Sharma and Siddharthnath Singh. Also dropped Health Minister Jai Pratap Singh, who led the government's COVID response over the last few years. None of the opposition leaders invited to the swearing-in turned up. Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav, who will take on Yogi Adityanath in the UP Assembly, tweeted saying the swearing-in venue was built during his tenure. The stage is now set for the new Uttar Pradesh government to take charge and perform. The BJP made a host of promises during its election campaign on jobs, free electricity and on the stray cattle menace. It's now time to walk the talk. With camera person Rajesh Gupta, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
हमारा केशव मौर्य जी हैं। केशव जी उप मुख्यमंत्री दोबारा बन के पहली बैठक रही, क्या कुछ चर्चा हुई?
आज केवल परिचय की बैठक थी, सारा मंत्री परिषद एक दूसरे से परिचित हो जाए, इसके लिए बैठक थी, वो बैठक हो गई।
सर आज मुख्यमंत्री दोबारा बने हैं, कैसा महसूस कर रहे हैं? तमाम प्रयासों
क्या महसूस कर रहे हैं कि प्रदेश की जनता की सेवा करने का फिर मौका मिला।
दानिश, आप रिप्रेजेंट करेंगे मुसलमानों को योगी सरकार में, तमाम चर्चा कयास, टिकट नहीं मांगा आपने, कैसे हुआ, कैसे मंत्री बने? थोड़ा बताइए अपनी जर्नी के बारे में, अपने बारे में बताइए हमारे दर्शकों को।
देखिए आज बहुत खुशी का दिन है। मैं एक साधारण परिवार से आने वाला व्यक्ति हूँ। मैं विद्यार्थी परिषद में था और अखिल भारतीय विद्यार्थी परिषद में काम करते करते मैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी में मुझे प्रदेश का अल्पसंख्यक मोर्चे का महामंत्री का दायित्व था वर्तमान में। और 2022 के चुनाव में हमने पूरी मेहनत के साथ ग्राउंड लेवल पर जाके काम किया, अल्पसंख्यक बाहुल बस्तियों में, अल्पसंख्यक बाहुल विधानसभाओं में और उत्तर प्रदेश के जो पूरे प्रशासनिक 75 जिले हैं उन जिलों में भी हम गए। तमाम जगह हम जाके ग्राउंड लेवल पर मोदी जी का और योगी जी का जो विकासकारी जो नीतियाँ थी उनको हमने ग्राउंड लेवल तक पहुँचाने का काम किया। और निश्चित तौर पर ये मेरे लिए, मेरे परिवार के लिए और उन तमाम कार्यकर्ताओं के लिए एक बहुत गर्व का दिन है और एक बहुत बड़ा संदेश है कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी एक ऐसी पार्टी कि अगर आप काम कर रहे हैं तो आम कार्यकर्ता भी कहीं से कहीं पहुँच सकता है।
All right, let's now shift our focus and get you the very latest from ground zero in Ukraine. Now, Russia claims that Ukraine's largest military fuel storage site has indeed been destroyed. Meanwhile, Ukraine has said that 300 people have been killed in Russian airstrikes on a theater in the port city of Mariupol. Now, US President has landed in Poland and is going to be visiting towns near the Ukrainian border. The United States and the EU have announced a task force to reduce European dependence on Russian gas. Meanwhile, like I said, over 3 lakh people still trapped in the port city of Mariupol. This as the entire Ukrainian city, according to Russia, has been destroyed. 300 people are estimated to have been killed in Russia, Mariupol, I beg your pardon, in airstrikes that Russia conducted, targeted airstrikes that Russia conducted on a theater last week.
New visuals from the strategic port city of Mariupol show that virtually everything there has been destroyed by Russian troops. 300 people are estimated to have been killed in the Russian strikes on this theater last week, according to officials. Destroyed homes, bombarded buildings and broken towers and windows. That's all that's left of this besieged city. As Ukraine hopes to evacuate civilians despite repeated failed attempts. Russian forces have already cut off the city from the Sea of Azov. The fall of Mariupol would link Russian annexed Crimea to territories controlled by Moscow in the east. Russia's aggression drawing strong condemnation from NATO heads of state, who have called upon Putin to withdraw military forces from Ukraine, but ruled out enforcing a no-fly zone over Ukraine. As Russia's war heads into the second month, majority of the people in cities like Kharkiv, Mariupol, Chernihiv and areas around Kiev are going without proper food, water and electricity, in shelters, waiting for a way out. Sana Marva for NDTV.
Petrol and diesel prices are up by 80 paise. The petrol and diesel price witnessed yet another hike today. This is the third increase in 4 days. Petrol and diesel have seen an overall increase of 2.4 rupees a litre after months-long hiatus, as India's top fuel retailers kept fuel prices on hold during the elections in 5 states. So after the hike in petrol and diesel prices, the third such hike in the last 4 days, those are the latest prices in your cities. 4 days after the horrific incident in West Bengal in the Birbhum district, where women and children were burnt alive in their homes, the Calcutta High Court has handed over the investigation to the CBI, leading to a sharp reaction from the TMC. Meanwhile, the village where the violence took place has been deserted, and stories of the carnage continue to emerge.
Empty homes, not a soul in sight. Most houses are locked. Villagers have fled, only the police and media crews remain in the hot afternoon. After the Calcutta High Court handed over the probe of the case to the CBI, a Central Forensic Sciences Laboratory team from the agency reached the site after an earlier order from the court. They left after a survey of the burnt home where 7 bodies were recovered. Among those dead in this one home was 18-year-old Lily Khatun and her husband, the only male body to be recovered. Lily and Kaji Sajidur Rahman married in January this year.
Lily Khatun and her husband arrived on Monday to spend some time with her family. But on Monday evening, after Bhadu Sheikh's murder, when crude bombs were hurled at this structure, she, along with her husband and other family members, took refuge in that house. Soon, the mob reached that house and set the home on fire. Lily Khatun and her husband were amongst those who were caught in the fire and did not make it alive.
পরব করতে এসেছিল নতুন জামাই বিটি নিয়ে রাতের বেলায় আমার ভাইয়ের ঘরে সোনার ঘরে ছিল সবাই মিলে বসেছিল বম তখন ওরা ওদের করে কে মার্ডার হয়েছে হাদু মার্ডার হয়েছে তখন ওরা এসে দৌড়তে দৌড়তে এসে খুব বমবাজি অনেক বম ফেলেছে আমার ভাইয়ের ঘরে সবাই বম ফেলছে তখন লুকিন জ্বলছে যে ওই ঘর ভালো ঘর ওই ঘরে মারতে পারবে না আমাদেরকে তাদের বিয়ে হয়েছে 2 মাস আগে তারা সেদিন বাবার বাড়ি বেড়াতে এসেছিল বেড়াতে এসে ধরেন এই মারপিটে পড়ে গেছে ওরা এই সব কটাই এক ঘরে ঢুকেছিল ওই ঘরে আগুন লাগিয়ে দিয়াতে সব কটাই পুড়ে মরে গেছে
In Parliament, BJP MP Rupa Ganguly broke down while speaking on this issue.
पश्चिम बंगाल भारत का अंग है सर हमें रूपा गांगुली को प्रेसिडेंट रूल चाहिए हमें जीने का हक है कोई अपराध नहीं है कि हम पश्चिम बंगाल में जन्म लिए हैं ये अपराध नहीं हो सकता सर ये अपराध नहीं हो सकता
The Trinamool Congress also questioned the Calcutta High Court order, saying the CBI is controlled by the BJP.
রাজ্য সরকার যেখানে সমস্ত ব্যবস্থা নিচ্ছেন তদন্ত পদক্ষেপ ক্ষতিপূরণ সেখানে সিবিআই কেন সর্বভারতীয় তৃণমূল কংগ্রেস পরিষ্কারভাবে বলছে বিজেপির 2 ভাই ইডি আর সিবিআই সিবিআই নিরপেক্ষ নয় ওরা বিজেপির পক্ষে
The tragedy in Bengal has shocked India, and perhaps one of the most tragic developments is the death of the young couple who were simply caught in the crossfire. In Boktui village, with camera person G.D. Shankar, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
And real estate developer Supertech was declared bankrupt by the National Company Law Tribunal, the NCLT. Now this in a move that could affect 25,000 home buyers. The Company Law Tribunal decided this in response to a petition that was filed by the Union Bank of India for non-payment of dues. In response, the developer has stated that they will file an appeal with the Company Law Appellate Tribunal against the NCLT move.
A leading property developer in Delhi NCR, Supertech, has been declared insolvent. Now what that means is that there is a freeze on their assets and a freeze on their repayments. I am actually at one of the key locations that led to this declaration of insolvency in Greater Noida, Supertech Eco Village Phase 2.
रेरा में जो कोट किया गया है वो 20-22 लाख में मेरा ये घर का कॉस्ट है, लेकिन मुझे 35 लाख में मिला है, लेकिन मुझे घर भी नहीं मिला। मेरे फादर हार्ट पेशेंट है, मेरे पास कोई इनकम का साधन नहीं है। आई एम जॉबलेस नाउ, मेरे पास जॉब भी नहीं है और मैं बहुत परेशान हो रही हूँ। सुपरटेक फिर भी मेरी कोई हेल्प नहीं कर रहा, बाकी और भी कोई मेरी हेल्प नहीं कर रहा है। अभी सुपरटेक इंसॉल्वेंसी हो गया है, मुझे नहीं पता कि मेरा घर कब मिलेगा, मेरे साथ क्या होगा।
2010 से आई हैव स्पेंट 1 decade इस चाह में कि मुझे मेरा घर मिले।
As you can see, there are so many residents very distressed with the situation. Years have gone by and they've not been able to get the house that they paid hard-earned money for. Now what this conflict resolution process will lead to is remains to be seen, but their wait will continue. With Shashikant Jha, Meher Pandey for NDTV.